Dave Palumbo with an RX Muscle news update. As I'm sure most of you have heard by now, Matt Porter, a bodybuilder, contest prep coach, has passed. His wife reported it on the Facebook page. She kind of told the whole story. I'm not going to sit here and read the whole diatribe to you. Obviously, she's upset. This was a horrible thing to find out. Matt was certainly a positive contributor to the bodybuilding world. He lived the sport. He loved it. That was his passion. You know, some people, they fall in love with bodybuilding. You know, that happened to me early on in my career. And it's a love affair for the rest of your life with it, you know, and you go through different stages of competing, becoming a coach, becoming someone who disseminates information, and just being a part of it. Showing up at the shows, going to the Olympia, going to the Arnold, and, you know, being there with your clients, you know, helping them to achieve, you know, levels of accolades in their life, winning shows, turning pro, you know, competing at pro events. And Matt did all that. He ran the gamut of everything. He even had his own supplement line, Matt Porter approved. So he was living the bodybuilding dream. He was making a great living from it. He has a, you know, loving wife. He has unfortunately a really young son who lost his dad, and that's going to be a tough one for him. I can't even imagine having two young kids and another one on the way myself. I can relate to that. I think that, you know, people shouldn't start pointing fingers and putting blame. You know, a lot of people are probably sitting there and wondering, and look, it's normal to sit there and say, hey, this guy was in his 30s, he passed, you know, this could happen to me, right? And, you know, I've done these videos where I've gone on especially after Dallas McCarver passed, and I've basically told people to make sure you get health checked, get those, you know, cardiac CTs done to check the coronary arteries, check your calcium score to see if you have any blockages in the arteries, get your echocardiograms to see how your heart is performing, make sure you check your blood pressures on a regular basis to make sure that you're maintaining good blood pressures, get your blood work done to make sure your kidney and liver markers are good, because these are all things that, look, when we bodybuild, we're putting our bodies on the line. When we use performance enhancing stuff, that also adds another level of danger, you know, and everything in life is dangerous, let's face it. But if you're informed and you're looking over your health markers, that's going to reduce the likelihood of anything bad happening. Now, the irony of the story is that, you know, Matt, you know, did have some blood pressure issues according to his wife back in 2015, and some heart issues, and he addressed them, and he became very diligent. He did everything that we said he should do. He started getting regular checkups. He went for blood work. He got all the diagnostic tests done so that he could make sure that he was healthy. His decision to use HRT or whatever other little experiments he did, that was his own, but it seemed as though, you know, he was keeping an eye on what his health markers are. And I've talked to him before. You know, we had a little run-in a couple years ago, and he called me up like a man, and we talked about it, and I would consider him a friend, even though we didn't talk every day. I had him on my shows before. I interviewed him. He was on Iron Debate. So this is a person who I felt was a positive contributor to the industry, and who was helping, you know, people to become aware of you know, taking care of their health, not just of their bodies and trying to be a big, freaky, you know, bodybuilder. So this is a shock, obviously. And what it basically says is that we're all vulnerable, and that we, you know, you don't know when your last day is. So you got to live your life to the fullest. And you can't walk around obviously being scared all the time, but at the same time, you have to be aware. You can't put your head in the sand and not pay attention. I think the biggest thing that we're probably, as bodybuilders, guilty of is not being more aware of the fact that we're extremists. Everything, you know, when I got my quadricep operated on, you know, and they told me, okay, you can go back to training, I had to ask them what that means. And they didn't understand why I asked them that, because to me, training is going out and squatting, you know, deep squats, you know, heavy weight. And what I might consider lightweight, you know, the orthopedic surgeon might consider ridiculous weights. I have to ask these questions because we don't think normally as bodybuilders. We're extremists. And, you know, Matt was, you know, guilty of that as well. His wife, you know, said it right in the little post that, you know, that was Matt's addiction. And I don't think that necessarily caused his death. And we can sit here and try to figure it out. And I'm sure they're going to do an autopsy and find out what the official cause of death was. But I don't think it was bodybuilding. I think it was he had something wrong with him, and that unfortunately, it went undiagnosed. The thing that pisses me off is that it seemed as though Matt knew his body. You can tell by the post. He knew he didn't feel right. He went to the doctor. He kept telling him he didn't feel right. They kept dismissing him and saying, "Oh, you have a cold, or maybe you have pneumonia." And you know what? When you know that something's wrong with you, don't leave that doctor's office. Don't leave that urgent care. Go see someone else, because no one knows your body better than you do. And as bodybuilders, we become very attuned to our bodies. We're probably the most sensitive people in terms of knowing when our bodies are right and when they're wrong. And when something feels off with you, don't dismiss it. And don't let anyone else dismiss it, because it could be a fatal outcome. Had he gone to the hospital and got checked in and they would have done a bunch of diagnostic tests on him, he might still be here today. And he knew that something was wrong. But when you have a doctor's telling you, "Hey, you're crazy, go home," no one wants to stay in a hospital. No one wants to stay in a doctor's office. So you figure you're good. But you know what? The doctors are just people too, and they don't know everything that's going on. If you don't feel right, you got to address it. Also, I think this also tells you that you have to live your life to its fullest. Have no regrets. I guarantee you, if we can talk to Matt right now, he would say, "I have not a single regret. I lived the life that I wanted to. I lived the bodybuilding lifestyle. I was making a good living from it." I'm sure he didn't want to leave so soon, especially with kids. When you don't have kids, it's a different story. We've lost some bodybuilders, unfortunately, over the last couple of years that were young, in their 30s, 40s, 50s. And a lot of those guys didn't have families. So, the impact when I say families, I mean children. And so the impact, while it's terrible and it hurts the families, it's not going to impact the next generation that's looking, to that person to be a leader for them, to be a mentor, to be someone that they can emulate. So my heart really goes out to Matt's wife and his son, Noah. There's a GoFundMe campaign that they started. I put a link to it on my Dave Palumbo Facebook page, both pages. I'm sure it's on several other sites as well. I encourage you to go there and donate some money. While I'm sure Matt was doing well financially, this is for his child's, college education, I'm sure, and education moving forward. Money that you've made today will disappear very quickly. So this is for a good cause. I'm sure he would have more than likely been donating his own money if someone else had passed away. So, like I said, if you have a few pennies, it doesn't matter. You can put $1, $2, $5, $10. I saw some people donating $500. That's wonderful. And this is only going to go to help the next generation of person. And like I said, having kids myself, I can completely relate and sympathize with that. So, not to belittle this point, obviously it's a terrible, and I'm getting a little choked up. It's a terrible thing that's happened here in the bodybuilding community. Matt touched a lot of people's lives in a positive way. And while I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that used to argue with him online and debate him and all the fun stuff that goes along with that, at the end of the day, that was just fun stuff. But we all are a family. It's the Iron community, and we all need to stick together now and not let this go down as a negative. You shouldn't be going on Instagram and on Facebook and posting negative things about Matt, because you know what? That's not going to help anything. He was a positive contributor to this society, whether you liked him or agreed with him or not. And this could happen to anyone. Any one of us. I said this to Chris Aceto the other day. I said, "Chris, you or I could not wake up tomorrow morning and the mystery would be there, and people would be like, what happened to him?" And that's really what happened to Matt. And I think, that's why it's so crazy. I had contacted Phil Viz, his good friend. I don't think he didn't even know. And, he broke down on the phone, and because they were very close, and I can understand that. This is a shocking thing, especially in a young person like this. So let's join together as a community. Let's use this, try to make this into the whatever positive we can make it into. If you haven't gotten diagnostic testing done in a long time, if you haven't had your echocardiogram, your CT scan, if you haven't got blood work or checked your blood pressure, go out there and do it. If this is a wake-up call to save one person, then you know what? It was not in vain. I'm Dave Palumbo with an RX Muscle News Update.